final FinCapDev competition webinar, Navigating the World of Open APIs. We'll start with just a few words on the competition itself. As registrants, you know that FinCapDev is this national challenge to develop new market-ready mobile apps that are going to help working Americans make smart financial choices and get better access to financial services. It's structured in 2 phases. We're here in phase 1, this call for submissions qualifying phase. All proposals are due December 10th, at which point your submissions will be judged for innovativeness, their potential to impact financial access and capability, the feasibility to get that app built by May 1st, and the potential for its sustainability in the marketplace. Now, after December 10th, we'll move into phase 2. At that point, we will have honed that pool down to 10 to 20 of the most promising proposals, and we'll support them in this phase 2 incubation phase. Then in June, we'll have a live presentation. We'll have judging by a panel of influencers in the space, and we will award those cash prizes, including the $50,000 grand prize. So that's the rundown. One final point. You've seen the incentives to apply, but we've added a little sweetener to the deal, as you'll see on this next slide, if you haven't seen before, to reward you early birds who are already working on these proposals. If you complete and submit your proposal by 6 p.m. on Monday, December 3rd, that's coming up, it's a week early, you're also going to be entered for a shot to win a new iPad mini. So a little sweetener before the holidays for you if you're ahead of the curve on that process. So with that, please enjoy tonight's presentation and discussion. Don't forget to submit those questions, and don't forget to finish up your applications. Take the knowledge tonight. You know how to apply on that web page. December 10th is right around the corner. So with that, let me again welcome David Butler, Product Manager of the Open API Platform for MasterCard Worldwide. David, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I forgot to push another slide up. I'll just give everyone 30 seconds or so to have a quick look at that while I introduce myself. Dave Butler, I am the Product Manager at MasterCard. We have a large emerging payments group in which I'm a member. My background career-wise is I'm an ex-RAF officer. I was an engineer officer, did a career change towards the end of that stint of my career. Got into IT about 15 years or so ago. I started my own company up. I joined IBM. I'm a developer architect by training, an engineer, a software engineer basically. And I was sitting there minding my own business in IBM when one day I got a phone call. LinkedIn is very important to everyone, trust me. Someone was asking me if I knew anything at all about open APIs. I had literally just finished a stint of going around doing some strategy discussions with large companies on behalf of IBM. So I jumped at the opportunity to take over this job where I basically commercialized a product that's come out of our innovation lab and are now sort of offering it to the big wide world. What I'm going to do this evening is really cover 3 main themes. Talk about the emerging web API, and I'll describe what the web APIs actually mean shortly. In terms of the app business model and how this is not just transforming IT, but actually transforming the way businesses actually engage with IT and look at business cases sort of moving forward. I'll discuss opportunities to take advantage of mashups. What is a mashup? Via the open APIs that are beginning to emerge. I'll also try and pass on some helpful tips that I've gained not just from being a product manager of this platform, from actually using these things myself professionally over the last few years or so. We'll have a question session at the end. If anybody asks a question that I feel uncomfortable with answering publicly, I'll be extending an invitation out to everybody just to contact me, and I'll do a one-to-one session as needed. Okay? So I hope you enjoy this. I wish you all luck with the competition. Having just realized what the prizes are, I wish I'd entered, but onwards and upwards, as they say. So this isn't going to be a death by PowerPoint. There's a few slides in this deck. I'll be showing you a video as well, which hopefully will crystallize what I'm trying to get over. But first of all, let's level set. First of all, OpenAPI, big question mark. There's lots of definitions about OpenAPI. The metaphor that I tend to use on the technology platform side is, as you'll see the picture on the right there, it's a good old Apple USB power adapter. What an OpenAPI platform represents is that central bit. There's a plug that the outside world can plug into. We basically say, think of a socket and plug metaphor. We describe what that socket looks like and then describe how to build a plug. And then we go on to say, when you connect that plug to the OpenAPI socket, we'll describe what the messages are, how you make a request, and the type of responses that are actually offered. This is a really good picture, actually, because it describes the way we abstract out what external developers need from the here-be-dragon stuff that's going on inside of the company. And if I keep referring to MasterCard going through, please bear in mind that this actually translates to anybody who is offering an open API. So the goal is to enable outside development organizations and teams to understand quickly what we have in terms of our services, which are the sockets, how to build those plugs, and then how to basically protect you from any changes that we might need to make inside as we evolve that service moving forward. So the services themselves, we use HTTPS, obviously. We actually, along with most people, adopt a REST architecture. REST, without getting too deep into it, most people understand REST as being messages that consist of data objects, and then you do something with them. So like get accounts, what you would expect to return a list of accounts. There's lots of references on the web which actually explain how the RESTful type architecture came about. The reason we adopted it and why most people adopt it is because it's a human understandable presentation of the data that these services are actually going to be providing you when you make a request. And again, most platforms most certainly use XML as the data markup, but there's a wholesale move over to JavaScript object notation. Basically, the reason why people are keen on open APIs, we'll get into this shortly, it's actually now far more straightforward to make a web-based application. Certainly web browsers have got JavaScript engines. A JSON type format is easily consumed by those engines. It just makes programmatic sense for people. So without further ado, what is the web API and app business model? Well, there is an emerging app economy. Again, this is a personal view here, but having been in the business of writing mobile applications from really 1999 when WAP was still around, what Apple actually did when they released the iPhone and the App Store was revolutionize mobile application development. I started my business 2 years too early. I had to basically build all of that stuff myself, and it's just too difficult. The really key thing, iPhones are great. Consumers love iPhones. But the key thing for the software development industry was really the arrival of that App Store. For the first time, independent software vendors had a ready marketplace for the applications that they were building. And demonstratedly so, iPhone users buy apps. It was just a fantastic move, really, on Apple's side. It spawned a whole new industry, and anyone who reads the press can see, as a result, what's going on. As I said before, building an app is now very straightforward. The ease of building on a mobile platform is moving across to the web and to native applications, even on desktops. You can build an app, in a week. What you can't do is necessarily get your hands on the services and the data sets that would bring that application to life. And that's what I want to describe and discuss with you guys tonight. because you can now build apps so rapidly, instead of building an app for, I don't know, the 150 million active adults in the USA, you can actually segment down economically into the thousands. That's fantastic because, again, we know that if you want people to use these applications, you have to deliver real value to the consumer. And if you're trying to develop an application that's going to appeal to 50 million people, you're on a hiding to nothing. It's much easier if you can produce an app that is focused on 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 people, and then repeat the process and rinse for the other groups that your business model is identifying as segments. You have to focus with laser beam precision on user experience and actually deliver some value that meets the customer need. We can do that really for the first time. And there are some fantastic applications on the App Store that really demonstrate the convergence of the platform, a mobile phone, Android, whatever, Windows 8, with a specific business model that you're trying to expose out to consumers. And when I used to brief this stuff when I was with IBM, I used to point people at applications like Shazam, an unbelievably powerful application and a very, very successful application. The real trick now is to take that type of approach that the Shazam team and others followed and really apply it to the new applications that are coming out. And open APIs are actually a critical part of doing that. So we're looking here, further down the slide there, it's cheaper, quicker to build a client app, but you still need those services and access to data. Rolling your own services to do that is probably going to be very expensive and time consuming. And the problem is it takes your focus away from delivering a really good user experience. So what you really look at doing is seeing what other companies have provided in terms of services and then roll those into your solution. And the Open API technology is really designed to do exactly that. It's approaching a sort of standardized way for a company to expose internal data sets and services in a secure, robust, etc. type manner to outside companies. It's a win-win for everybody. For a company like MasterCard, historically, it has been really difficult to work with us. It costs a lot of money and it takes a tremendous amount of time. There are loads of integration meetings. The legal document, stacks feet high. The commercial agreement is customized to each individual group that's trying to work with us. And it costs MasterCard a fortune to go through that process. What it's meant, certainly for the bigger companies, is that we've only really been able to work with the other big companies because that's the only way we can justify the investment we need to make. What an open API is doing is making it much cheaper for both us to expose that service and then for other people to come in and work with us. So what's the value chain with this? Well, there is a new value chain, and this concept is taken out of a presentation that an Apogee guy did on YouTube. It's really good. It's called, I've forgotten, I was going to tell you guys. It's the Enterprise Guide to Open APIs from Apogee. So it's on their website. Basically, from that little chart, it shows that people love applications. App developers are the critical players in this because it's the app developers that actually write these apps. And again, some insight from within MasterCard. We're really, really good at services. We have built the world's fastest payment network. That's a real specialist skill that we have. Building applications for people, maybe not quite so good. It's not really a core skill that we have. So what we're looking at doing is taking the expertise that we have in building those services and exposing them to the people who really can build good apps, i.e. people outside the company. And really, the Open API forms an essential link because in our case, MasterCard Technologies, we have legacy systems, we have loads of different types of servers, loads of different types of standards. With the Open API layer, if you think back to that picture of the Apple Power Adapter, Open API is putting like a common sense, consistent interface on top of all the stuff that's going on at MasterCard that changes all the time. So we don't change the external interface. It gives us freedom to upgrade inside without worrying about breaking people's code. The really key thing about open APIs, I mean, I've been talking about the technology going through this really, is you can't just take an existing service and expose it and then walk away from it. You actually have to also build the business and legal frameworks that surround that. What I mean by that is we don't look, certainly within MasterCard, we don't look at putting, you know, like I don't know, an XML, a SOAP service out and then, you know, say, everyone, there you go. We don't want to have to get into individual meetings with everyone who wants to use that service. We want to make it easier to use, hence the move to straight XML and JSON. But we also want to provide boilerplate documentation in terms of, you know, this is the commercial agreement, these are the legal agreements you're going to have to sign. We're trying to reduce the effort from our side to actually work with people outside the company, which makes it a lot more straightforward for us to actually establish new relationships. Anyone who is building a client application at the moment, certainly internally within MasterCard, we still do that, I try and stress to them, separate out the architecture of your own client applications into the user interface and then the services that you're going to use to bring that to life, and then resell those services to other people. It's a no-brainer, to be honest. So using us as an example, I've already mentioned, you know, we're the second largest payment network provider in the world. There's a really good video on YouTube. It's called MasterCard by the Numbers. When I was with IBM, my colleagues were asking, what on earth are you doing leaving IBM to go and work for a credit card company? I used to point them at that, MasterCard by the Numbers. It's a great advert for the technology that MasterCard's built up over the last 50 years or so. We have a huge variety of services. Our own MasterCard Advisors group has alone 440 separate technology packages, each one of which is a potential one or more services. And we have 40-odd years worth of data sets that we've built up. What we're looking at doing is exposing those assets within MasterCard to the external world, because, you know, this represents significant value to other people's solutioning. Going back to what I said, if you're writing a client application, anything that stops you from focusing on the user experience is frankly a distraction. Instead of rolling your own services, look around at companies like mine and many others, and see what services are around that you can plug in, rather than, you know, putting your energies into stuff and reinventing the wheel in effect. Some services you'll have to build yourself, and we'll come to that in a second. So the second slide I mentioned, it's really difficult for us to work with people who are looking to overcome that, and we're looking really at, and I stress this, making it faster and cheaper for other people to work with us. And we're not just putting these services up and then walking away. We have a life cycle for each of these services. We have service level agreements. We have business agreements. You know, you enter into a contract with us when you want to use one of these things for real. And we also look at growing that service. Part of my job is to reach out to anyone who wants to use this service and establish a partnership. And we do respond to requests and feedback from our newly formed partnerships. It's still early days in MasterCard. Great opportunity to work with us and to actually help us to build an infrastructure that's of real value to the community. And this actually aligns. I mean, we're not just doing this because, you know, we think we're great people. It actually aligns with our own strategic goals, which, of course, with MasterCard, we want people to use MasterCards. A drive to a cashless society is very important to us. And bear that in mind as well. When we come a bit later, I'll talk about due diligence that you should be doing on your side. Have a look at the open APIs that other companies, indeed MasterCard, is offering, and just make an assessment, you know, within your own mind. Get comfortable with why the company is doing that. You know, is this in keeping with what the company could be expected to keep on sort of pushing out for over the coming months and years? I'm going to show you a quick video now. If I can flick over control, will I actually see this video? Hello? I don't know if the video, sorry? Hi, Carolyn, was that you? Apologies, we have a...
I think Jessica's pulling up the video now.
Okay, will I see it on my screen?
Yes, it looks like it's coming. here.
Okay. We may need to switch the sound on if I can't see it, because I won't be as a narrator otherwise. So let me know when it starts playing.
All right, it's just starting now. Are you able to see it?
No, I'm not. Could you switch the sound on, please?
Yes.
So MasterCard and developers are joining forces to create a tomorrow that's full of rich, new experiences. Imagine a college student in her first dorm room. New technologies give her unprecedented capabilities that are powered by developers who take full advantage of MasterCard's APIs. A developer can simply tap into the APIs to create and serve up content that's perfectly suited to a specific consumer at a specific moment. Another developer can integrate it all into a display that's intelligent enough to respond to movement and reposition objects in a virtual space. And another developer can combine video chat and simultaneous viewing with MasterCard offers and budgeting tools, creating completely new ways for people to shop, like this.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, hon.
You got a minute?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm picking out a new chair for my room, and I'd love your help.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about this one?
That's nice. Let's see what else they have. That's cute. I like that. That's a good price, too.
Yeah, but I really like this one.
Ooh,
A little over my budget.
that's okay. I can take care of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mom.
Sure, honey.
When developer and MasterCard meet, whole new ways of innovative thinking emerge. The result brings to life personal moments that are more practical and priceless than ever.
Great, thank you very much. Hello?
All right, Dave, back to you.
Okie dokie, thanks very much. Clearly that is a concept video. Nevertheless, if you take away the hardware, we're not that far away from being able to offer that type of solution, to be honest. So normally I narrate onto that video because there's some really interesting points from certainly from an open API type perspective. The first is note the sort of laser beam focus on customer experience. I think most people I present that to, you can see the reaction. I mean, that is a really, really cool concept. What you see is the juxtaposition, if you like, or the combination of innovation in hardware, application development type technology, and the integration of services. I stress in that video, you're looking at effectively a mashup of services. It's not just MasterCard that's providing a service, but the retail store is providing a service that gives access to SKU level type product data. You see integration in with social commerce or social media type APIs. It's just a really, really good example of how that type of innovation, is effectively a game changer. The concepts of mashups are really critical. The view that we certainly take at MasterCard is that, we encourage people, to look at our services, and if they consider our services to be best of breed, go ahead and use them. If you find another company that's got a better service that, competes with ours and beats us, go ahead and use that. We just want to be part of that process. It's absolutely critical, that the open part, if you like, of the open API, we take very, very seriously. We're looking at being part of, if what you like, of the next wave of disruption that everybody knows that's coming. We have to look at the retail experience. We still queue up in groceries like we did 50-odd years ago. There's surely much better ways of doing that, and there have been lots of misstarts, in that particular area. But you can take that type of observation and say, well, there's other areas, across the whole sort of personal finance space that really could do with another look at the actual user experience, identify what the current problems are. I mean, my wife at the moment is tearing her hair out with password control. I frighten the life out of her telling her she needs to use a password on every site. And she sort of looks at me and says, well, how am I supposed to manage this? I mean, I've got a notebook full of passwords in there. And I hate to tell her the next thing she needs to do on top of that. But that type of friction, if you like, from the 99.999% of people out there who don't really care about what IT is doing, they're just forced to use what we give them. We have to address those issues. And of course, as I say there, open APIs, I hope you agree, I've got a really large part to play in this.
Hey, David, if I can interrupt really quick.
Yeah.
Could you share your screen with us again?
Oh, didn't I share it?
That's
it's
okay.
supposed to be showing. Hang on a second. Oh, sorry about that.
Sure.
Share my screen. Apologies.
No problem.
Is it showing now?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay, that's cool.
Yes,
sorry, I'm very sorry about that.
No, oh, no, that's no problem.
I'll show you what the previous slide looked like. It's just a text slide. There's the benefits of channel innovation, convergence, the concept of mashups, the vision for social commerce, which we're really excited about, how disruption across not just the retail experience, but most consumer experiences is going on, and open APIs clearly have a part to play. And the video itself, I've seen it many, many times. I still get very excited by what it's actually showing. And I wish Gorilla Glass would get out a piece of hardware like that. I couldn't wait to get my hands on that. So for the techies in the audience, this is a real sort of high-level architecture of what if you like, of what we've built, and it is really replicated across the industry. The MasterCard API platform sitting at the bottom actually has two bits. The platform itself is hosting the services. That's what your applications would talk to. And at the moment, we have 10, 11 sort of service categories with, I think it's about 45 individual services spread amongst them. So there's a fair number that we've built. Developer Zone is, if you like, the first time that MasterCard has concentrated on the user experience of the developer. This is an unusual product within MasterCard. It's being built by developers for developers. One of the reasons I show that video is you may have noticed that it's actually a concept that came out of our own innovation labs. This is one of the success stories. The innovation labs came up with this 2.5, 3 years ago. After a slow start, we've been busy commercializing it, and the wrappers are off. It's open for business. But Developer Zone is where we point human beings at. The MasterCard Open API platform is where we point the software at. So Developer Zone gives you everything we can think of that helps people get up to speed as quickly as possible. And I'll show you what that looks like shortly. So we're looking at building a global developer community. We are global. One of my direct reports is the community manager. He is one of the best developers I've ever met in my life. And his job is to represent the best interest, frankly, of everyone else on the call. He gives me a really hard time and fights the corner as hard as he can. And we're looking really at helping outside developers and indeed our own developers to build the type of platforms that we've just seen on the video. All the time being aware there's going to be an end user. So we're really keen to establish partnerships with people. I can't stress that enough because we really have a lot of expertise that we can actually bring into anyone who's got a payment-related type function in their application. So by signing up with us, you get more than just a service. In theory, you get access to some of the world's best payment experts. That's the promise, anyway. So what are suggestions for a services-based app? Well, so what I'm trying to do here is to say, what are you actually sort of, what are we looking at, if you like, when we actually put these services type architectures, open API architecture out to the big wide world? And this is something that you may remember I mentioned, when you build your own solution, if you adopt a service and then client type architecture, proper architecture, you properly abstract the two out, And when you're building the service, you try and make it as generic as possible. You get the opportunity to build your own open API. And I say to other business owners, both before I got to MasterCard and at MasterCard, when you build your own client applications, if you do that and then expose the services that you've built for your own sort of hero, if you like, application, you get the opportunity through reuse to really monetize that service. So even if your own client app fails, you know, you've got a backstop and you can sell this service to other people and see what they go on to build. When you do that, certainly in our case, you know, we have some incredibly sensitive data. I mean, my credit card data goes through these rails. I certainly wouldn't want MasterCard to give access to that to anyone but the people who should have access. So, you know, we're busy anonymizing like crazy. The last thing I would do is build a gateway into MasterCard that suddenly opened up, you know, to the world, everyone's credit card data. And you really, you know, the last thing I'm going to do is really clobber the MasterCard brand. I'd lose my job in about 5 nanoseconds. So what we've built is like a proxy, like a wall, if you like, that goes around MasterCard, and it really provides high granularity control to the types of data and services that we have. And we have a service onboarding process that all the service owners have to go through. You know, a legal, business, everything we can, we throw at the service to make certain that it's rock solid, you know, when it goes into the initial part of life cycle, which is the beta. Provide secure, smart, and above all, scalable access to your services and data. The reason I sort of stress the scalable, everyone throttles their services. That's kind of annoying when you've got a runaway success on your hands with your client app, and then you have to pick the phone up and talk to a company like MasterCard and say, I'm sorry, I need more than 100 requests a day. So we've built a system that allows us effectively to give us linear scalability. Because we are PCI compliant, we don't go anywhere near a cloud. We scale through hardware, but you know, we've got the hardware sat there ready to go, so we can scale very quickly. Again, if you're working in a large company and you start finding yourself working in this field, I can't tell you the change management issues that we face. The first question I always get from people who are skeptical about putting a service on OpenAPI is, aren't you going to cannibalize our sales? Well, answer to the question is possibly, but the reuse model is incredibly powerful, as I'll show you in a second. So demonstrating the value of these things to your internal stakeholders is critical, because the last thing you want is to put a service up and then find that the owner is not interested and it's allowed to die, because my view is other people could be basing their businesses on these services, and we don't want to muck around with people's mortgage payments in that way. Demonstrate the value of his services to other partners. So you might be able to resell. Yeah, so I think I've gone over this many times. The resell model, which I want to show you now, is really very important. This is really what I use to try and persuade people within MasterCard that what we're doing makes a tremendous amount of sense. Over and above, you know, the fact the App Store is great and people love apps and it's another money channel, all the rest of the stuff. What this chart is showing is that a single service, which is on the left on the OpenAPI, we can target at banks, and we're talking at card issuing banks, our traditional customers, acquirer banks, which are the guys who actually sort of represent the merchant's best interests. We can actually sell this to merchants, and by a merchant I mean anyone who wants to take an e-commerce or a point-of-sale type transaction, or indeed anyone who wants to use one of our services, which would, you know, basically be an independent software vendor. You know, so one service can be used, if you write the service correctly, can be used by a huge range of potential initial users. And we rely on those guys then to write the applications that can be, and I've shown here a phone, a desktop, and a laptop. It could be a Mercedes-Benz, it could be a fridge, anything basically is connected to the internet and has some sort of operating system that can support a client app, is a potential application that could use one of the services that's going out on OpenAPI. And then there's a vast array of end users that you can actually service. Again, you know, one of the sell points for a company like MasterCard, you know, why you know, guys like you should sort of trust, I guess, what we're trying to do. You know, we, with a single service, can access, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of users by forming partnerships with banks, merchants, and independent software vendors. It's really exciting stuff. So what are some tips? Because I want to finish and give some people some time to ask some questions. Anyone who sort of writes mobile applications is aware that you have a reverse hockey stick at best. You put your app up on an app store, whether it's Android or Windows 8 or the iPhone app store or whatever it is, and you get a lot of initial users, most of whom will use your app once or twice and then never go back. You have to concentrate, and why I keep stressing this, you really have to concentrate on delivering value to the end user. The reason why Shazam was so successful, because it delivered obvious value. When you write a mobile application, or indeed any application, make it useful, otherwise people won't come back. Try not to, if you can get away with it, if one size doesn't fit all, can you micro-segment your customers? It is much easier than it used to be anyway to write these types of apps. You can focus on much smaller customer segments and actually deliver stuff of value that's targeted at that, guys. And if you're clever at the way you write your application, forget the cross-platform stuff. It's actually cross-customer segment stuff is where the action is, I think, moving forward. Your apps have to evolve. You can't just write version 1 and then leave it. And it's like we can't just write version 1 of a service and then leave it. We have to respond to what the developers are actually requesting from us, because that's real-world feedback. We can ivory tower all we want, but if we're not actually providing something that people don't want, they're not going to use it. Same thing moves across to consumers. If you're not providing something consumers want, find out what they want and build it, and then make certain that as their needs and wants change, you're evolving to match it. Anything that takes away focus from this effort is, basically not good. If possible, when you build your application, consider another revenue stream, which is reusing those services, and really, so reach out to other developers to see, I've got this really cool service. One of the things we're looking for at the moment, for example, is signing up a merchant. Most merchants don't know what a merchant ID is, and most merchants don't know what an acquirer ID is. We need both to channel a payment. So how do we build a service that not only allows us to sort of collect that data, but do it in such a way that developers know how to sell that into merchants, so they don't realize that what we're actually asking them is something they could get from a bank statement type stuff. So that service would be used for loads of people. And again, what we're doing at MasterCard is reselling that type of service to other people. And again, at the bottom, if you have to build your own service, consider reselling. So it's the user experience stupid. All my experience is just pointed towards that. So it's great sort of rabbiting on about this stuff. I've mentioned MasterCard more than I really wanted to. Where can you guys go and find these applications? Well, where I go, and it's really sort of the emerging standard, the catalog, if you like, of OpenAPI availability, is Programmable Web. I put the URL at the top there. There is an API directory, and it's actually a very good presentation. There's loads of different categories of data. The initial sort of solutioning for anyone doing a client app at the moment, go and have a look to see what Programmable Web's got, okay? They've got, there's like 8,000, I think, of these OpenAPI platforms out there at the moment, and they even point to the mashups that are going on, which services are being most successful in terms of mashups. My goal next year is to make certain MasterCards included in there, because we're not at the moment. But we will be, trust me. So that's a great, a really, really good resource. It's the first resource I would go to, programmableweb.com. This just gives you some sort of vision, if you like, of how OpenAPIs have really taken off very recently. You can go all the way back to, I think it's Jan 2005 or February, something like that. The first OpenAPI that was recognizable hit the streets, and I think it's PayPal, I can't remember. But really, there's not too much growth for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I don't know, about 2 years or so ago, it just takes off. The time to double is halving all the time. As I said, there's over 8,000 now. I actually track payment APIs, and they're going up about 30 every month at the moment, and it's accelerating. This is huge. What's going on here? There's tremendous amount of value that these things are actually developing or delivering. Sorry. But, and this is the big but. Anyone who was having a look at Hacker News this morning may have seen there was an article about one of the companies that's just sent a notification out to all of its users of its open API saying that they're shutting up shop in February next year, I think it is. It's a salutary lesson. You have to basically apply due diligence to any of these services that you're planning to use for real. When you see sort of 8,000 open APIs appearing, the first question is, which one of those are still going to be in business in 4 or 5 years' time? Which one of those can I bet my mortgage payments on? You have to choose who you're going to work with very carefully. Obviously, quality is important. Has someone literally just taken a SOAP-type web service and exposed it, or have they put some thought into what they're doing and the presentation of it? Security is absolutely critical. We use OAuth 1A, which is an open standard for authentication. And to be honest, the model that we're sort of supporting assumes that there is, in effect, a server, if you like, that's consuming the services that we're offering. You can connect directly from the web, but we don't advise it. We suggest that you want to put your own service in front so you can build your own security on top of it. Robustness, if you're basically providing an app for consumers, nothing tees off a consumer more than spinning wheels and services not available or the application's failed. So make certain that whoever you're working with has a robust platform. Ask them, well, how many outages have you had in the last year, and how long do they last? Permanence above all, really. This would probably be top of my list, along with security anyway. It's great, someone starts a company and they're really keen and off they go, and they're just not even in Series A yet, and everyone starts using their API and then it falls over because they've run out of cash. Have a backup plan if you're going to do that. Have at least a plan B. If you're a little wary of the people that you're working with, just be sensible about it. And maturity. If you see an open API platform out there that's constantly changing all the time and not retaining backwards compatibility on the changes of the services they're doing, what that means is if you start using that service, you're going to have to change your own code base, inevitably. And you don't really want to do that. It's a diversion of effort from what you're actually trying to do. And then the openness and transparency of this. Open means that, there's some integrity in place here, and transparency means that people aren't going to switch and bait you. They actually tell you up front how much things are going to cost and what the process is and everything else. We're really aware, certainly with some of the partners that we use. There are some people who can tell you one thing and they're doing something completely different in the background. You don't find out about it, for months and months, and then you'd never gone into business with them if you'd known. So, look at the reputation of the people that you're dealing with. And if you're choosing to resell your own web APIs on an open API type platform, same thing applies to you. If you own these things, then you own those criteria when you're seeking to work with other people. And we've only got 14 minutes left, so let me quickly whiz through. How can we help you guys? So I mentioned that Developer Zone itself is written by developers for developers. You can access it from developer.mastercard.com. Please go and take a look, even if you don't plan to use us. We try and make it as straightforward as possible for someone to work with us. It's 3 steps. The first step is to register. We need an email address because we'll be delivering you a key. With that key, you get access to a sandbox version of all the services that we have. Right up front, there and then, you can start developing against that service, knowing that you've effectively got a representational service with representational data and representative type performance. So you can actually start building your solution around that. When you're ready to go live, you've got business buy-in, you think you've got a business case, etc., you get in touch with us, and it's at that point that we enter into a business relationship with you. And that contract will tell you what the SLAs are, that we promise that we won't change the service, and I think at the moment we're on 180-day deprecation if we have something that we need, unless it's an emergency bug type thing. But we commit to 180 days, at least 180 days notice if we're going to make a change that might impact your application. And if you get back in touch with us and say, look, I need 3 years, we'll keep that version going, okay? We're not here to put you out of business. We have a foundational set of services. The platform is still in beta. In fact, some of the services themselves are still in beta, and the rules we use, which we explain, In the interest of openness, if it's in beta, then we reserve the right to break backwards compatibility. We'll try not to do that, but we may have to because it's a brand new service. We may be getting feedback from people saying, this is awful, fix it, change it, whatever. The platform itself is still in beta, actually it's in production. We have full disaster recovery, and these are questions you should be asking people. Full disaster recovery, high availability. We've got TPS performance figures, scalability in place. Everything you would expect from a large company like MasterCard, we've addressed through this. So there it is, developer.mastercard.com. It's fully open. You don't have to register if you don't want to. You can go and look at all the services we've got, have a look at the presentation information, get your developers to have a quick look. Any questions? Dan Martin is your man. He's the community manager. And this is one of the services you might be interested in. I don't know what your concepts are, but it's the lost, stolen account list. It's basically access to the good old black book of bad credit cards that either been reported lost or stolen globally. It's the type of thing that we're building up, and we've got a roadmap going into next year of some really groovy services that are coming on. But the ones we have at the moment are foundational. They cover payments, alternate payments, fraud services, and informational type services. And in fact, if anyone's interested in working with us, have a look at the location API. That's the simplest one we have, and it's the easiest one to build a mashup with. Just go to Google Maps, grab that API, grab our location API, and you can overlay on a map where all the ATMs, for example, are in a particular geography. Okay, so that was a bit of a rush at the end. We've got 10 minutes. Are there any questions? Oh, before that, I mentioned at the beginning, please reach out to me if you want. My email address is there. If I can't answer a question now, I certainly will be able to on a one-to-one, okay? But there we go, okay.
Dave, thank you so much. That was just a wealth of information and really excellent. We have a couple questions coming in so far, and again, you do use that chat box. We've got 10 minutes. We'll squeeze some in. One is just clarifying, if you could clarify for folks on the call, what is PCI compliance?
Oh, sorry, yes. I was trying to avoid industry buzzwords. So PCI compliance is basically a set of standards for anyone who handles credit cards electronically. There's like 12 bits to the program, and what it's designed to do is to make certain that the infrastructure that you have is hard to hack, okay? You need PCI compliance if you're going to store a credit card. That's basically the rules of both Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Discover. And it's really difficult to get if you have to go for full PCI compliance. MasterCard, obviously, we have to be PCI compliant. We've gone for the absolutely top standard. It took us 7-8 months to get that. And we know what we're doing. This is not a trivial thing. So when you're architecting your own solutions, if you can find a service that handles credit card data for you, really seriously consider it. You don't want to get hacked. It puts you out of business. Does that answer the question?
Yep, I believe it does.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I could spend another 2 hours talking about PCI.
I'm sure. We've got a couple inquiries just sort of generally asking more about mashups.
Right.
You want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so all a mashup is, the concept is as I mentioned about looking at the location API, you would use the Google API for the map, okay, so that's the service call to their APIs, and then when you're building a layer on top of that, you would use the location API to overlay the sort of points where, I don't know, merchant that takes cash back or PayPal or ATMs or whatever stuff. So the combination of the two, and that's about the simplest mashup I can think of. And this is, I had an intern working for me this year, and I asked her to go off and build that. She hadn't done much coding. It took her a week to get it up there. Really, really, really good stuff. That's about the simplest mashup I can think of. It's two separate services that are being combined for the benefit of the consumer's app. So what we're saying with a mashup is we really want to be part of those. We don't for a minute imagine that we've got the best coverage of services. If you find a service from one of our competitors and want to use that on one of our services, round of applause, carry on. That's exactly what we're trying to encourage people to do.
Perfect. So we've got a question coming in saying, sort of thanks for the example of the warning of APIs, shutting up shop, and that coming back to bite you. Is there anything else in terms of lessons learned that you feel comfortable sharing about a bad experience with an API that you've run into?
So how do I word this carefully? Yes, my own startup company, I can quite safely talk about that. This is back in the day, really before we were looking at this sort of standardized way of accessing services. It was a transit application, and we were relying on a feed from one of our suppliers. And we had told them that we're a startup, we don't have a lot of cash, we're not going to use this unless you promise us it's going to be up for another 2 years or so. So, hey presto, we went live, and literally 2 days later they got in touch and said, sorry, we can't support this anymore. It's a bitter experience when it happens. It really is, because I'd put a lot of personal time into integrating that service. And that was back in the day when, it was loads of integration meetings and it cost a fortune, money we didn't have. So that's why I stress that. When you're moving into this space, especially as a startup, you have to choose your partners very carefully. And I don't mean by co-founders, although that's just as important, but the people you're going to be working with. These open APIs are going mainstream. You can expect, there's lots of money to be made from people who actually offer these APIs. We charge access fees for all of our services, but I'll come back to that in a second. People could rip you off, so be careful, do due diligence. And really the due diligence at the moment is just applying some intelligence about who you're going to work with and how you're going to work with them. Look for legal agreements and business contracts. The whole point of doing an open API is not just the technology, it's effectively having boilerplate versions of business and legal agreements, commercial arrangements and legal agreements that you can take internally, work with your own team, and then say, yes, I want to sign that, or no, I don't want to sign that. The way we work is, if you don't want to sign our business and legal frameworks, that's fine. We haven't got time to give you a custom version, unless you just happen to be Bank of America. Okay, then you get tender loving care. So I was going to come back to something. I've forgotten what it was now.
Okay, I'll give you another one and let you come back if you think of it.
If I remember it, yeah.
A couple, and if not, we'll keep moving. A couple questions coming in about data and what kinds of data folks could expect. If someone's looking to build an app and they want to get access to, for example, consumer spending data. Of course, that would be, anonymous and, aggregated or not, but in terms of getting access to transaction data, is that something someone could find in that developer zone for MasterCard?
We have plans for it, but we don't have anything up there at the moment. We do have a chief privacy officer, and she is all over us doing that. She basically says, no, prove to me that what you're doing is totally safe. We do anonymize data, and we do look at trend-setting data. And MasterCard advisors have a number of products that they sell at huge expense to some of the bigger players. Those 440 technology packages that I was talking about, that's what I'm looking to tackle next year. Grab the ones that make most sense, and then offer those up to people who could benefit from getting access to that type of data. So I apologize, we don't have that at the moment. But I'm hoping, over the next year or so, we will.
Great. And I guess I know we're closing out here, but can you point to something that sticks out in your mind as a really great example of API usage in a personal finance app? And you've given us several examples, but any that stand out?
Yeah, I've already checked. Paid Piper. If anyone Googled me, you may have seen that I've been doing some press releases with Atif Hussain from Paid Piper. They actually, we came up with a business case, and we'd been talking to Atif. He was running a startup out of San Francisco. I think there was about 4 people working with him at the time. And what he'd asked us for was similar to the previous question, can we get access to this? And said, sorry, we can't. But we were having a chat, and we came up with a business idea. And I said to Atif, we think we can support this. Would you be interested in building it? And he went off and built it. And he built it in 2 weeks. And he built it so fast that we weren't able to get banks to sponsor it. which was a lesson learned on our side. But if that, we were literally 2 days from having something ready for a big conference in May. If we had had the bank, that would have been an unbelievable example of how these APIs could be used to build a brilliant consumer experience. We were actually looking at a business card replacement. Instead of us giving people business cards at conferences, we were looking at giving a MasterCard prepaid card, scan our new contacts business card in, do a know your customer type capture, and then upgrade that card to a reloadable card. Oh, and then, by the way, we're going to put a small sum of money on it, and we would brand that card with Developer Zone. And the idea was that we've just given this developer a MasterCard reloadable prepaid card, and even better, we've shown them what an API can be used to build this really cool, it was going to be an iPhone app. So that's the one I talk about all the time. It's certainly internally incredibly powerful, really good business case I was very excited about. I couldn't believe how quickly they were able to get something together. And they've moved on to an even better business case, which I can't talk about because they're about to launch it.
Well, on that teaser note, thank you. That was a wonderful place to end it, a great sort of visualization of the power of these technologies. So thank you again for sharing. Thank you for sharing your contact information. For everyone on, again, please feel free to reach out. My contact information is on there as well. For any questions you have about the challenge, the competition itself, please feel free to reach out. Thank you to my colleague Jessica at CFSI who helped us with the technology side of things. And good luck finishing up those proposals. We're all very eager to see what you do, leveraging the exciting opportunities that are out there. So thank you all.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.